Hello, hello. It's Lisa and Lauren from Art is Moving, Taking Our Break podcast. We're here. It's just us two. So we're going to have a conversation about.
You want me to pose the
Yeah.
question?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask, how does process art help you process? And I thought we could just chat about that for a little bit
Yeah.
and see where it goes. Because
Well, you
yeah,
feel it's really important right now. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really important. But I also think we like allude to it all the time and we chat about it like throughout our conversations.
Mhm.
But we've never specifically just
Mhm.
kind of shared even our own personal experience with
True.
process
They
art.
don't. Mhm.
Thought we could just go there today and see how it goes.
Well, I feel my art or the way that I live is process art. It is, for me, process art is really about not the end product, but what's going on in the moment and in between and then after. So it's almost like I've always, I don't know why, just intuitively looked at my own work as when I'm done with it, I'll look at it and stare
Mhm.
at it and I'll say, what do you have to tell me about my life, about anything? It's also process art is about, like, say I'm feeling negative, stress. If I just want to, I think we get stuck on the object, not the expression of what art is.
Mm,
You know what I mean? I think
yeah,
we're trained very little as little children to believe that it's the object that's important, when actually, if you think about it, it's the process that's important.
yeah,
So if you want to
yeah.
add to that, yeah.
Well, I think it was a couple of podcast conversations
Mhm.
ago. I remember I was listening back to it, and it was this idea of um making art that no one else is ever going to see.
Mhm.
And I sort of view that as, at least for my own version of process art, not that my art doesn't have a process to it and that it
Right.
doesn't help me process my emotions while I'm doing it. It is very much all of those things, even though my art that I might include in a gallery would be very well, it would be thought out, and it would be an object at the end and things like that. The
Mhm.
whole sense of it is a process, and it is
Mhm. Yeah.
something I don't even know I need while I'm
Mhm.
doing it. And it takes
Yeah.
me a really long time to figure out why I
Mhm.
needed to do it and what it was really, like you said, kind of trying to tell me.
Mhm.
Um, but I've been thinking about this idea of making art. I mean, some people might call it art for art's sake, right?
Right.
Um, but for me, it's more about really just making it with no other goal except for the making part,
Mhm.
just to kind of see what would happen.
Mhm.
And I think the reason I'm kind of clinging on to that a lot lately is because I am definitely in this moment of my own artistic journey of knowing I need to do something with my personal art, but I don't really know what that is.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, the word want sounds weird to say, but I don't know what I want to do right now. Like
Mhm.
I'm a photographer, I'm a
Mhm.
printmaker,
Mhm.
I'm an installation artist, I'm a baker,
Mhm.
I sew stuff. I have always sort of done a lot of mixed media work,
Mhm.
and I'm in this sort of process of figuring out, like, hey, Lauren, what do you want to wake up and do? And so maybe that's why that question is sticking with me, or that assignment that I gave myself like 2 podcasts ago of like, hey, why don't you just go make some art? Because I'm not really doing it. And so I'm kind of curious as to why. And maybe this is part of the process, which I find kind
Yeah.
of interesting. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about something. I'm a different animal, I guess, because I grew up hypersensitive, and my mom kind of shared with me at a very young age that you have to get this out of you, Lisa, because my sensitivity was seriously like, and
Yeah.
it wasn't about the product. It wasn't my mom saying you got to draw the apple like an apple. It was more like my emotions were so strong. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
she was just like, you just need to process it. And I think that's what process is. It's get it out of you. Just get it out. Almost like, a lot of times it's almost like a purge. it's almost like a purification. And in my own life too, I taught, at-risk kids and juvenile juvie how to like process their feelings and their emotions, because I think especially when you're at that age and you're in juvenile hall,
Yeah.
and how I did it was processing through dream art. They had
Yeah.
no idea what dream art was, but that was process, and it wasn't about product, it was about process. And then I taught with the kids at Lincoln Child Center who were in a mental health institute that it was just about process. And I think that's how I that's that's my art. It's
Yeah.
always been about process, although I do show in galleries, I do sell my work, so it's a weird, I think sometimes as artists, facilitators, you have to have this marriage of a paradox where it is just about process, meaning I don't give a shit what it looks like.
Right.
I
Right.
and through my process, it's always about creation and destruction. So I can have the most beautiful piece, and then all of a sudden I go, nope, I got to go into it, and it's gone, it's destroyed.
Right.
So what's that process? Also, it's like I don't even know if it's courage, but to have the just like, I'm just gonna do it. And if I destroy it, it's destroyed. And then what am I gonna learn from that destruction?
Right.
So if that's making sense at all.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I do think that I'm sure that there are many people out there that struggle with the notion is it still process art if I sell it? And I would say, heck yeah, it is. I mean, if you happen to make art that helps you process something that happened to you, your current daily emotion, or just even get like your nervous system re-regulated, and then you are able to sell it, by all means. I mean, I would say go for it, because of course I have the philosophy of like the more art that's out there, the better. And if you can make a living through selling your work, that's like a win-win, because you're supporting yourself, and obviously someone is enjoying your art and you're making their lives better.
But I also feel it's a different take on it as well. Because we love art museums, we love looking at art too, and we know that is also process. So just from my own experience, when a person does buy my work, it's almost like they fall in love with the process of it. So it's almost like it becomes their process. So it's like, for example, I know a lot of people don't understand Jackson Pollock, but when you go to an art museum and you see just the energy of a Jackson Pollock, that was process art, completely process
Right.
art. He didn't know what the fuck he was doing, right?
Right.
At all. He just was like, a lot of times he was, altered by different things. But when a person goes to a museum, they're processing it. That process might be like, oh yeah, my 5-year-old could do that. That's a process,
That
right?
is process, yes.
Or it's something like, oh my God, he expressed the rage that I feel inside from the inhumanity in this world. I mean, so there's many levels to process seeing, and I just don't think it stops at you creating art. That's like the first step. I mean, there's so many
Yeah,
layers to this.
for sure. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that it's sort of yeah, no, I think that of course the reason you and I want everyone
right.
to take art breaks is because we know that is even more powerful than viewing the art itself. It doesn't mean that you're not going through a similar process when you view art and come out with on the other side with something positive, or negative, or whatever it is. But if you did that and also made art at this, like if you went to a museum, sat down and took an art break at the museum, and then showed that art break to someone else, like that to me is sort of the cycle. It's like, you and I constantly talk about the ripple effect. And I think that that all becomes even a larger process. It's like a cultural, social process. I mean,
Right.
that's what World Artbreak Day is, right? Is that it's this idea of everyone processing at the same time, and like what is going to happen? What is going to happen when a community sits down and they're all, now I would argue that it takes a little bit convincing for people to not objectify it and turn it into something that is good or bad. And we definitely have those conversations at our tables. All of our hosts do. But when you do find those people that are in the middle of process art. And I would argue that process art can have no judgment. It's not
Yes.
process art. You know what I mean? And of course, you're going to have to try to find that balance between judging, not judging. But when it's truly, I think process art is when you're not even thinking about what color you're going to use next. You're just picking up the color and you're using it. That's when you're in the midst of process art. That's when you're going to get out the thing of your body, like you were mentioning, Lisa, that you don't even understand yet. Even as adults, right? We constantly talk about kids not understanding their own emotions. And I'm like, come on, man. There's tons of adults that don't understand their emotions. I would even argue more so because they're further away from anything processing, because it's not just about painting on a piece of paper. It's also about shooting some basketball hoops outside by yourself. That's process, you know, and that's getting the emotions out. And I think that I think that when we do that, I lost my train of thought, but I think it's just me.
You're in process.
Oh no, it's just like this idea of like, what part of it are you going to take part in? And I think that at the museum, if you're viewing art, that's wonderful. And if that's all you ever do, that's all you're ever going to do. And that is the level of the benefit of process art that you will receive. If you're going to dive in and do some process art on your own, it's sort of like an onion, right? How many layers of the onion do you want to take off and get to the core of it? And I guess I'm wondering, you know, even me, myself, like, how come I can't get myself right now to do process art? I don't have the answer to that question. That is the question I've been
I'm processing, you're processing. And what is process
how
within
many
you?
times am I going to say the word process during this podcast? Podcast.
When I was processing this podcast that we were going to have this morning, and I was kind of like that in between state where you wake up and thinking, I need my celery juice, I need my coffee, you know, kind of like staring. And what I said it was celebrating process over protection. That just came out from nowhere. Over protection, over perfection, and over control.
Interesting.
So that's fascinating. So it's almost like process, there's no judgment. It's just doing it. It's letting go. And I mean, not to project upon you, and also myself, it's like, I know that making a mark every day is powerful. No matter where it comes from, no matter what it is, if I can just doodle or make a mark, even journaling is making a mark. Even like you said, physically walking with intention and going, I just need to process. I can process this stuff. You know what I mean? With my children, or with the state of affairs of this world, which is so it's a burden, right? So I think there's so many layers. And I think we just need to get out of the way. And we're almost taught to be in the way. Whatever that social conditioning is, you know what I mean? Is it judgment? Is it perfection? Is it I guess what I'm just presenting to our audience is, why not? Why not? Why are you in your way? Do you know what I mean? Or who is in your way? Is it society? Is it, you know what I mean? Do I have perfection? Do I need control? I've just read something, Louise Bourgeois, the artist who makes the spiders. She said a quote like something like, what did she say? Something about, if you try to control too much, you're going to hurt yourself. That makes sense.
No, I think you are, I mean, all the things that you were saying, I'm like nodding to. Yes, I am a perfectionist. I always have, I call myself a recovering control freak, right? Because like, what do you really have control over? Not much, you know? And I think that's the scary thing. And I think that's why we have a lot of control freaks, is because when you admit to yourself that most of your life is dependent on everything else around you and not you, a lot of it doesn't have to do with any decisions you make. That is terrifying. It's really terrifying. And I think it might even be scarier in a world where you feel super disconnected. And I think a lot of people do right now. I do think that if you started asking people, a lot of them don't feel connected to their community. And so this idea of letting go of control, it requires trust, and we don't have trust in our community right now. And so a lot of people aren't willing to let go. And what they're doing instead, right, is they're just disassociating and they're distracting themselves. And I think for me, I want to make art for an audience right now. I have that itch again, because I haven't done it in a couple of years.
Yeah.
But I also know at the same time I need to do process art for my own well-being. And so I'm trying to find a way to marry the two. I'm definitely in a transition period. I can feel it, you always, right? We've been doing this long enough to know.
Yeah.
And I know that I was talking to a friend of mine over the weekend, and I said to him, I don't know what medium I want to do. I really don't. And I've been there for quite some time, and he's in the same boat. And I said, but I know I'll get the answer. I'm just so impatient. I would like to get asked, but this is part of my work. My work is always like this. There's always a part of my work where a lot of my work happens on the inside of my head and my body. A lot of it does. And then it becomes this thing. And so I know I'm in that part of the process, and I am very uncomfortable with it. And so I have to sort of just, that's letting go, right? I have to trust the process, everyone always says. And so I think I'm in that mode, but I think what I need to do is almost, and you and I have had these conversations in the past of like, when you set even tighter parameters for yourself, sometimes it's easier to get yourself to do something. And so as we're talking, I'm feeling like maybe that's what I need to do, is I need to say, well, it's almost like you control your own self. Like, well, you're only allowed to write 1 page a day. That's it. That's all you're allowed to do, and start there. And then it almost gives me like permission, but an assignment at the same time. And then, because once you get started, there's no stopping you. It's the starting part that is really difficult. And that is the part that I'm having trouble with, because I think I'm at a point in my life where I have space for it, but I also need to make space and time for it. And part of me is like, I'm going a mile a minute right now. Because this is the part of my like familial life where everybody's at a different place all at once. And I'm the conductor. So I'm like, we're going here, we're going here, we're going here. And so the time when I do have time for myself and to reflect, I'm exhausted. And so it's like a back and forth with that. And so it's like coming to terms with the fact that I'm not 20 anymore. And I can't stay up until 2:00 in the morning to do what I want to do. Right. And then coming to terms with the fact, like, if you really want something, you do actually have to make time for it. It's not going to magically appear, and admitting that to yourself. And then,
I also think, for me, something just came up. It's like, at the essence, process art is being in the present moment. Meaning, I know that, like you were talking, like I need to have parameters, but the parameters would be like, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes a day just to be in the present moment. It's almost like, I was thinking about this too this morning. It's almost like visual art is acting in a way. You know how actors, thespians do like the voice things, and they get into, you know what I mean? They do movements. That is process art. That is them getting to the place where they become like, oh, I can turn it on. I'm in flow. And I don't think us as visual artists think about that, where it is, because that's what process art is. It's making the mark when you don't want to have the breakthrough, when you don't want to, like, when you say I'm tired, when it's just like giving the moment when you have a challenge. Schedule process art, meaning, like you were saying, don't make it for the art or for the product, the object, but make it for the moment. And then the other thing that I've been thinking about as we're processing this, people are so now into experiences, experiences. That is process art at its heart. And people don't identify it as. So it's almost like the experience of just being in the moment. And maybe it is just, wow, cutting the moment where you're, instead of going, I'm tired, I've got to take care of this, I got to take care of that. It's just that moment in time. It's almost like you always say, art breaks are the ultimate self-care. So if you take the moment to just be you, whatever you're feeling authentically, whatever that feels like, whatever that move is, whatever that, make the mark and see what happens. And then what I think is the process also, you make the mark in the present moment. And then after the present moment, you go, whoa, what was that?
Right.
Let's think
Yeah.
about that. Like, why did I make that? How come I'm feeling this way? And wait, I feel a little differently. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah.
and yeah, so there's so many layers to this process art.
Oh, I mean, I think it is. I think that, I think that you can, um, I think that you can make process art for something specific. I think you can sit
Yeah.
down and you can say to yourself,
Mhm.
I had this experience and I need to process it. I'm going to start painting, drawing, go for a walk and take some photographs.
Moving,
Um,
whatever. Yeah.
but at the same time, and I think that is beneficial. At the same time, you can just say to yourself, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to just doodle, journal, et cetera, with no preconceived notion of what you're processing.
Mhm.
And that in itself, it's somewhat of a different vein. And that is also very beneficial. And I think that's why I know it's like a really popular thing for people to be like, I'm going to make my small painting today and I'm going to do it every
Yeah.
day.
Right.
I'm going to journal while I drink my cup of coffee or my cup of tea
Mhm.
on a daily basis. And I think part of the reason people do it is because you won't do it if you don't do it every day. And so they all know that like keeping it as a habit is better than not doing it at all. That's pragmatic in my mind. And then
Mhm.
you begin to look forward to doing it, of course. And I've never had that kind of personality. I'll be
Mhm.
completely honest. I've never been the type of person that is in a studio every day. I'm not that kind of person. I am a very much like in it, very intensely in the midst of it, and then I need very long breaks from
Mhm.
it. And so,
Mhm.
and I know it's not like I'm not processing in other ways, right? You know that I'm
Mhm.
a baker and I'm a walker wanderer and things
Mhm.
like that. But I know that right now I need to make something with my hands
Yeah.
that is not cookies and cake and stuff like that. And that is what I am that's what I am struggling with. Maybe it's because I feel like, well, I've done that. And I have to remind myself again, it doesn't matter, you know? And so the latest thing I thought of is that I would do something and I would throw it away. And
Uh-huh.
so, right. And then you don't even, and then I would get the making part done and clearly it would be a process.
Mhm.
Right. And that there would be, it would be kind of done and
Yeah.
out, you know?
Out of you. I
Yeah.
think you were highlighting there's something about creating with your hands, which is the power of process art.
Yes.
It's getting out of you. I know from having social anxiety where I did have panic attacks from it was weird because I'm a process artist, but in social situations, I would have panic attacks where my hands would shake. And then I'd
Yeah.
be thinking like, these are how I process life. That's how I process that stuff. So it's weird. Like, and was that shaking because I wasn't processing it? Do you know what I mean? I wasn't letting it out. I was going into judgment about
Mhm.
what people think of me. Am I a freak? Am I weird? Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
and so, but I'm always fascinated with the power of our hands and what
Yeah.
is it. I think if we look at World Artbreak Day, God, we've been doing this for 16 years and we've seen it. When people create with their hands, there's something that shifts. It's
Mhm.
just interesting. So it's
Yeah.
almost like just create, just see what happens. And my advice for you is try something that you've never even done before,
Yeah.
or
I think,
something that scares the
yeah.
bejeebers out of you. That's like, I'm not a sculptor, but just do it and see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think that's maybe what I'm looking for is
Mhm.
something that I haven't really done before. And I'm not really sure what that is, but I mean, again, I know that it will happen. I'm not
Mhm.
worried about it. I am I am, but honestly, super impatient about it. And I
Yeah.
would to be there. But also in the meantime, I can just keep, doodling with my kids and things like that. And and that in itself is extremely important. It's important for them. It's important for me, and it's important for us, the connection that's made with that. We've been building a lot of things lately. That is, I'm using my hands for that, and I think that it's not like I don't have it in my life. And maybe what I need to do is like call it out when I see it, to almost give myself a little bit, see, you're doing it. It's like, it's right. There is no, just like you and I would always say, right? There's art breaks everywhere. There's not like a particular rule set you have to follow. I would just argue that, you need to not be judging yourself for what it looks like. And you also need to not be worrying about what's necessarily coming out or up for you while you're doing it. You have to sort of be in a zone of like letting it flow. And it's when you're doing process art, it gets easier to do that. But I also think like people who are experiencing it for the first time might be scared off by it a little bit, because it can bring up some weird stuff that, like really strong emotions in a very quick period of time can happen,
Yeah, but then there's a couple things, at least in my own experience. When those strong emotions come up, you're like, oh, wow, where did that come from? Like there's some power that resides in all of us. That's like, if it's not being heard, it gets smushed down, and then it comes out through other things, and other things that could be toxic. But the other thing that came up for me in our process, the raising of your children is process art in itself.
Oh my God.
You are like, I think there's a quote, I think by the Talmud, that said, the angels like water the plants and say, grow, 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 grow. It's almost like that's what you're doing with your children. You're like just watering them through different things, experiences, through holding their space. You need to all parents need to give themselves more credit. Even parenting your own self. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're growing. We want to grow. And that is process art in itself, because does that make sense? It's like, it's credit.
I would say that it's to do it genuinely, it is a very similar feeling as you receive when you are, it's a flow, it's a rhythm, when you're creating a work of art or a body, it's almost like a body of work that you're, when you're doing it, I'm only reflecting on the way that I make art. I make art in a really like conscious way. I think about it a lot. I have a very particular way I want to make my work, and a particular message I want to send. There's definitely a process to it, but I am not the type of person that's going to make something and then say, what are you going to say to me? I have a vision in my head, and I'm going to put that on paper. Does that make sense? And to me, my parenting is very similar, is that I am definitely always conscious and trying to be in the moment at the moment I'm parenting, as difficult as that can be at times to be in the moment, because it's also really easy to spiral as a parent. Spiral about your past and the future at the same time. And so I feel like if you're a parent, you are always in the dredges of process, right? Because everything that you are currently witnessing is a shift, and it is something you have never experienced before. And then that's why it brings up a lot of stuff for parents. That's why you end up parenting yourself while you're parenting your child. And so, that in itself, I suppose you could say, is a work of process art. My children are a work of process art.
I think so.
I
would almost I would lean to say that if like that whole like art is life, life is art, that's what process art is. It's like it's like we live in these boxes that are like, it needs to be this, it needs to be that, when it's not. It's just, that's what we're told it's supposed to be, when truth, this is my truth, art is life and life is art. And when you can merge those together, it's like today I saw something that said, you know, a lot of people think happiness is joy and that's it. But
Yeah.
happiness is not just joy, it's gratitude.
Mhm.
It's where, you know, you work for it. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not just this, I'm happy. You know what I mean? There's just
Yeah.
like multi dimensions to it, just like life is art and art is life. It's like this unfolding in this process about, you know, their process up and down, up and down, up
Yeah.
and down, up and down, up and down. And then I think that at the end of your life, when you're on your deathbed, you could be like, oh, my life was art. You know what I mean?
Yes. I think that like my kids would definitely say, but mom, remember you think everything is art.
Right.
So wouldn't everything you're doing be art? And so,
Right.
I mean, I'd have to reply, you know, yes, yes, and, you know, right. Yes.
Yes,
And I'd also like to create something with my hands, you know? And so I definitely will walk around today differently, looking at the things I'm doing, and understand that all of it is part of my own sort of, it's almost part of my own way of processing, you know. I mean, like, you know me, grad school, I was like, you know, filming myself washing dishes because that to me was a work of art. And so, yes, I I believe that getting to live your life is a work of art, you
Yeah.
know, like being alive is absolutely incredible. What a gift.
Yeah.
And then I also just this notion of what if you looked at everything as though it was art was
Mhm.
always what I've been thinking about as an artist. And that's what
Yeah.
a lot of those videos were about, that, you
Yeah.
know.
But my projection upon you is I feel like this calling, this process art that's in you that wants to express itself through your hands, it is about Lauren, whoever Lauren is now. It's not about Lauren as mother, Lauren as
Right.
wife, Lauren as baker, Lauren as, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about whoever Lauren is, whoever Lauren's evolved right now. And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm thinking your struggle is at the moment in time.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's like your work. You want your work. You know you're the rest is art and it's life and it's beautiful, and also it's not beautiful. It's sublime. It's like I was talking about, like living with, you know, when I was in the typhoon, Bobby, just recently. It's like living with the awe and then the terror of
Yes.
life, you know, in one sequence. So it's interesting. Life is, it's, if you look at it, it's fascinating. But that's my take on you. So you want your kind of like your opus mundi, the Lauren
Yeah.
who you evolved into.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I think it's like, definitely you hit the nail on the head. It's like, oh, that's my personality. What am I going to do now?
Right.
Like, what's next? And I can tell that my body, mind, spirit, all of me, all of Lauren is like, there's something else that you need to do. And then my conscious mind, right, does not know what that is yet. But it's strange, you know, like I would, in my 20s, I would have been spiraling. What's nice about age and experience is that, I mean, I know that it'll be worked out, because it's worked out every other time before, you know. It's the waiting part is interesting. You
But
know.
also projecting upon you, I think part of your, because I know your work from grad school, it was a struggle for you. It wasn't like my painting is like, I'm like, you know, I'm like, I'm either in the flow or I'm in torment and I'm just gonna blot it out. Where yours was like part of your process is struggle. So I guess we need to identify people who are trying to understand what process art is. For some people, it is struggle. It is the struggle. That's the process.
Yeah,
you know,
it's a labor of love. It wasn't.
Yes.
I mean, I remember one of my, you know, I had, you know, I forget who it was, but it was probably during a critique one time. Someone was like, don't you have any fun when you make art? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was like, do you? And they're like,
Yes.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, this isn't fun for me. This
Yeah.
is necessity.
Yeah.
This is not fun. This is necessary. And they were in shock. And I think I don't think I'm alone in that. I think there's a
No.
lot of people out there that know that what they do is a necessary, I wouldn't call it a necessary evil, because
No.
it is solving a lot of issues for me that would otherwise go unsolved. And
Right.
so, yes, you are correct. It is a huge struggle. And for you, I wouldn't say it's not a struggle. You just do it differently than I do. Is that like you put your struggle outside faster than I do, right?
Yeah.
You throw it on the canvas,
Yes.
you rip the canvas apart, you
Yes.
leave it in your
I
backyard.
burn it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think I do a lot of it internally.
Yes.
And then I try to make it as, I think I try to make it as universal as I can
Mhm.
for people. Not to suggest your work isn't universal. Your work is very easy to dive into, right? There's always a point where you're just sort of staring at your work. And so I'm not trying to suggest that, but that would be another interesting conversation to talk about your work versus my work, because it is very different. But I think that, like, yeah, I mean, that is to say that, like, however you're going to do process art, obviously you got two people here who've worked together forever, and we have very different ways of processing and very different ways of doing process art. You know, like I used to tell people, you know, they're at Artbreak Day. I'm sure you've been asked this question. Well, what kind of work do you do? You know, and a lot of people assume that it is one of the materials that is sitting at the tables. And I'm like, oh, this isn't part of my work. My work isn't anything like this. This is and then it's like, this is my process art. World Artbreak Day is my process art, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to think about it that way.
Well, what's really fascinating, and yes, it might be a conversation too, but yes, we come from different perspectives, philosophies, ways of doing process art. We know it's process art, but we came together in our collaboration, 20 years ago or something like that.
2008, yeah, like 18 years ago.
But we came together as partners, where we respect each other's process, where this partnership, this collaboration has lasted for 18 years, because we come from different places. We come from different spectrums. I could say I'm, a different color or a different fruit or a different, you know what I mean? But we come together because there's that same tree, which is process art. And so that makes Artbreak Day stronger. And we know that we became, from our childhood, better people through our art and our processes. We have that common.
Yes. Well, I mean, because I think that's the thing, is that I think as you become an adult, you're not going to necessarily just sort of impulsively do something. The reason I discovered a process art is it was an impulse. I did it. I didn't think about doing it, right? I wrote poetry and I did drawings and I journaled when I was younger. And then and then I picked up a camera, and then I realized years later that why I picked up a camera. Why did I impulsively go towards photography, right? And things like that. And I think that that's also another thing to say to people who might be starting process art for the first time, or might not even know that they've been doing it all along, and maybe just kind of give themselves a nod for doing it and do it even more, is that you may not know what you're getting from it, like, ever. You may never know why you did what you did. And that's why I think, like, we keep talking about the don't judge yourself part, is because it may not give you any answers. That's the thing. Also, I think the people struggle with process art is that it's not like A plus B equals C. It's not one of those things. Although I would argue that if you, like, dedicated yourself to picking something and doing it for 7 days straight, and, like, reflecting on how you're doing mentally, emotionally, you would be in a different place. I
do know, and I'd like to add to that. I think that's why one of the reasons we went to the graduate school we did, which was arts and consciousness. There's artists throughout time and space who have been kind of doing the same thing as you and doing the same thing as me. And if you go to books, if you read about it, because I'm very much about spirituality and art, and there's, like, there's thousands of artists that have, that took that perspective or that process way of doing it. And
Mm,
yours is more about identity and, things like that. And there's a ton of artists. So I think that's where art history comes in, or these amazing books that artists write, that you're like, oh, they're just like me, and you can understand yourself a little better if you want to go to the next step
right.
in the process, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thanks for chatting with me about that today. I feel
I
like
think this podcast was really about processing.
processing process art.
All right. Till next time.